I would never have believed in aliens if it weren't for the incredible discoveries that cast doubt on everything we thought we knew before. Medieval accounts, mysterious fragments found in the ocean, and artifacts millions of years old. All of this points to possible extraterrestrial intervention. We are on the verge of a discovery that could change everything we knew about our world and the universe. After watching this video, you will change the way you think about the ancient world. Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Kirtop channel, a place where you can find UFOs. American scientist Professor Brian Helmut of Northeastern University claims that the search for extraterrestrial life on Earth should begin with the ocean. In his opinion, oceans and seas hide many mysteries, and people have only a superficial understanding of their depths. Helmut, not being a specialist in UFOs but having knowledge in oceanology, believes that something related to extraterrestrial civilizations may be hiding underwater. I would like to add that recently, oceanographer Paula Bontempi joined NASA's Special Commission for the Study of Unidentified Objects. Earlier, NASA announced the appointment of a new head of UFO research, Mark McInerney, who previously represented the organization at the Pentagon. This underscores the seriousness of the approach to studying this phenomenon. Copper object. This mysterious artifact, made from a solid piece of copper alloy, puzzles researchers and collectors. The object is rather crudely cast with visible defects and has a head in the shape of a rectangular prism that tapers on all sides to a sharp edge. The handle, smoothly rounded at the end, shows no signs of impact, which indicates that it was not used for striking in the usual sense. There were once parallel scratch lines on the sides of the head, but they've worn away over time. This may indicate repeated use of the artifact, possibly during cutting, grinding, or scraping. The estimated age of the artifact ranges from 5,000 to 10,000 years, but its exact origin remains unclear. Some researchers hypothesize that this object could have been used for ritual purposes or as part of an unknown technological device. Supporters of alternative history believe that such artifacts could have been part of ancient, highly advanced tools, created using technologies that surpass the capabilities of ancient metallurgists. A landing site for UFOs. Gary Dixon, a 62-year-old resident of Flint, Wales, was driving to Llangollen when his attention was drawn to a 15-meter white round disc that was slowly spinning on the surface of the River Dee in Denbighshire. He was so intrigued by this unusual object that he decided to walk several kilometers to examine it more closely. The disc was perfectly round and was spinning counterclockwise, creating the impression of a mysterious natural phenomenon. Gary, who had planned to spend a winter day in Llangollen, was so fascinated by what he saw that he stayed to watch it for about half an hour. According to his observations, the disc made one rotation per hour. As it turned out, ice discs are not uncommon. This natural phenomenon is observed all over the world, from Russia and China to Scandinavia and North America. The first recorded observation of an ice disk was in Turkey. In 1895 in the United States on the Mianus River in Connecticut. In recent years, such natural formations have attracted attention due to their impressive size. For example, in January 2019, an ice disk 100 meters wide was discovered on the Presumpscot River in Maine. But an even more impressive case occurred in Canada, where a giant rotating disk with a diameter of 200 meters was spotted on the Tulsen River, which was captured by satellites. These unique ice formations have received different names: ice circles, pans, and carousels. The Knossos board game. The rules of this game have been lost to time, and to this day no one knows how it was played. This artifact was discovered during the excavation of the Knossos Palace by the British archaeologist Arthur Evans. Knossos, located on the island of Crete, is considered one of the oldest cities in Europe, and the game that was found dates back to around 1600 BC, made from precious materials such as ivory, crystal, glass, gold, and silver. The game was not only an expensive pastime, but also possibly a symbol of its owner's high status. Archaeologists suggest that the game might have been used not only for entertainment, but also for rituals or divination. Some researchers even hypothesize that the intricate patterns on the game board may contain astronomical or mystical elements, which attracts the interest of supporters of theories about extraterrestrial origins and ancient knowledge. It is possible that this mysterious board game once helped people communicate with higher powers, or even with extraterrestrial civilizations. Buddha's wheels and devil's carousels. Marine bioluminescence, a phenomenon in which some sea creatures emit light, has been known for a long time. For example, some types of plankton are capable of producing light bright enough to be noticed by the human eye. This phenomenon is often linked to glowing seen on or just below the water's surface. However, in addition to scientific explanations, there are also more mystical stories about mysterious circles on the water. These glowing rings are called Buddha's wheels or devil's carousels. Interestingly, according to one version, the first were named by Eastern sailors and the second by Europeans. The Chinese considered such phenomena to be favorable omens, while Europeans, particularly Christians, saw them as a bad sign. Notice how people in the West and the East, observing the same natural phenomenon, interpret it in completely opposite ways. At the same time, despite the popularity of these stories, there is not a single officially documented account of such phenomena. Perhaps the mysterious glowing circles are connected to marine plankton, which creates a bright glow in the darkness of the ocean. It is also worth noting that such stories about Buddha's wheels and devil's carousels are often reflected in folklore, but for now remain nothing more than myths and legends, not confirmed by actual facts. Scientists have melted 46,000-year-old ice. Scientists made a remarkable discovery by reviving an ancient nematode that had been frozen in Siberia for 46,000 years. This microscopic worm, identified as Panagrolomus culamensis, was found 40 meters underground, where it had been in a state of suspended animation since the earliest cave paintings were made. After being thawed, the nematode came back to life, began feeding on bacteria in laboratory conditions, and reproduced asexually, leaving a new generation for further study. The abilities of this nematode to survive in extreme conditions can rival those of more well-known species, such as Caenorhabditis elegans, which can survive desiccation and produce the sugar trehalose that protects against dehydration. This discovery could open new horizons in understanding the biological processes of survival and evolution, suggesting that species can exist in extreme conditions for thousands of years, and even revive after a long period of dormancy. If scientists are able to incorporate the abilities of these living organisms into humans, we could essentially be looking at time travel, since humanity would be able to put people into a state of suspended animation and wake them up in the distant future after tens, hundreds, or even thousands of years. Life in a meteorite. Researchers studying a meteorite found on the island of Sri Lanka stated that it is not just a stone fragment from space, but a potential artifact of extraterrestrial origin. Analyses have shown the presence of fossilized microscopic algae, which, according to scientists, may be evidence supporting the panspermia hypothesis, the idea that life spreads throughout the universe with the help of asteroids and comets. These discoveries have generated widespread interest, as they could confirm the theory of the existence of life beyond Earth. However, the results have been criticized by the scientific community. Some experts claim that the discovered fossils are too similar to terrestrial microorganisms that live in fresh water. The possibility of the meteorite being contaminated by terrestrial lifeforms while it was on the Earth's surface also remains a serious argument against the hypothesis of the find's extraterrestrial origin. Alien visitors in Egypt. Recent archaeological excavations in Egypt have led to a sensational discovery that has attracted the attention of the entire world. Archaeologists have found artifacts in the Giza Plateau area that, according to some scientists, may be evidence that aliens visited Earth 5,000 years ago. It all began with excavations in a recently discovered tomb dating back to the Old Kingdom of Egypt. Among the items found, metal plates with mysterious symbols and images of flying objects stood out in particular, which resembled modern UFOs. Analysis of the artifacts showed that they were covered with inscriptions in an unknown language. Some scientists suggest that this could be a message from extraterrestrials, which the ancient Egyptians might have interpreted as contact with another civilization. Linguists are already working on deciphering these symbols, but so far the results remain unclear. Attention was also drawn to images of unidentified flying objects on the plates, which, according to ufologists, could be diagrams of an alien ship. It seems to me that so far the researchers have made a lot of hasty conclusions, and most likely the interpretation of these plates will be more down to earth. Therefore, it's better to wait until the study of these artifacts is completed and find out what the symbols represent and why they are there. Neuragic bronze statuettes. These figurines with horned helmets shed light on a mysterious people whose origins are still the subject of debate. In the 12th century BC, the Mediterranean faced a catastrophe, the invasion of the so-called Sea Peoples, who united to attack the major civilizations of the Bronze Age. These warlike peoples, described by the Egyptian pharaoh Ramesses III, launched attacks on such great powers as Ugarit, the Hittites, Cyprus, the Canaanites, and even mighty Egypt. It is their invasions that are associated with the Bronze Age collapse, the disappearance or weakening of many great states. One of the most mysterious tribes among the Mediterranean peoples are the Shardana or Shurden. In Egyptian depictions, they are shown wearing horned helmets and armor. The most interesting aspect is this people's connection to Sardinia. In Phoenician inscriptions on the stone of Nora, Sardinia is mentioned as Srdn, the same name that the Egyptians used to refer to the Shardana. The neuragic bronze figurines found on the island became confirmation of this theory. They depict warriors with the same horned helmets as those on the reliefs of Ramesses III, as well as armed with shields and swords. This raises the question, were the Shurden originally from Sardinia, or did they settle on the island after their campaigns in the eastern Mediterranean? While historians continue to study the artifacts, this mystery remains unsolved and gives rise to many hypotheses about the role of the Shurden in the disappearance of Bronze Age civilization. Quakers and bioducks. If it seems that sound anomalies related to the sea and UFOs were recorded only by American sailors, that's not the case. Soviet submariners also encountered similar mysterious phenomena. In the 1970s, crews of Soviet nuclear submarines discovered strange sounds resembling frog croaking, which quickly spread through the waters of the North Atlantic, especially in areas controlled by NATO. These sounds were so unusual that they became the subject of numerous discussions and hypotheses. The sounds recorded by the acousticians of Soviet submarines accompanied them almost constantly and moved at an astonishing speed of up to 150 knots. However, the active sonar did not detect any objects that could have been the source of these noises. It was suggested that these sounds came from something too small to be detected or were actually living creatures. For several years, scientists tried to determine the nature of these strange quackers, putting forward various theories, from unexplored phenomena occurring in the nuclear reactors of submarines, to fluctuations at the boundary of water layers with different temperatures and salinity. However, the Soviet Academy of Sciences put forward a more likely explanation. The sounds were biological in nature and could have come from whales or unknown deep-sea mollusks. The submariners, in turn, disagreed with this, believing that the quackers were too different from any known marine creatures. Over time, a more realistic version was proposed by skeptics. According to this theory, the submariners mistook the quacking for the sounds of active sonobuoys dropped by NATO anti-submarine aircraft. These devices, equipped with water-activated batteries, could produce noises similar to quacking. This version explains why the quackers were most often detected in areas of active NATO patrols, and why this anomaly disappeared after the collapse of the USSR. Royal Navy sailors, in turn, recorded similar noises, which they called bioducks, from the English onomatopoeia for quacking. These sounds were recorded in the waters around Australia, where in the 1960s there were major nuclear test sites for the British Navy. Since patrols in these waters by the USSR or the USA were unlikely, the British also initially associated these sounds with marine life. It took scientists more than 50 years to identify the source of the bioduck. It turned out that the strange sounds were made by southern minke whales, which unexpectedly produced this sound before a deep dive. The Minoan snake goddess is the most famous symbol of the Minoan civilization and remains a mystery to this day. One of the most recognizable symbols of the entire Minoan culture is the snake goddess, but archaeologists still know very little about her. Given her popularity, one might assume that scientists have already studied this artifact thoroughly. But ever since her discovery in 1903, debates have continued about whom or what she represents. Dating back to around 1600 BC, this faience figurine is rarely found in Minoan art, which makes her even more mysterious. Some archaeologists believe that she represents a goddess who is a protector of animals, while others think that the woman depicted in the figurine has nothing to do with snakes at all. Some believe that the snakes in her hands are actually ropes, and that the figurine itself was significantly restored by Arthur Evans, which led to many misconceptions and incorrect interpretations. The Battle of the Eclipse. Imagine this: two kings who have been fighting a fierce war for 5 years, losing their soldiers, but seeing no end to the conflict. And suddenly, as the sky filled with the sounds of battle darkens, a solar eclipse occurs. At that moment, warriors on both sides freeze, lower their weapons, and watch in amazement as a natural phenomenon overshadows human rage. The kings decide to declare a truce. This event became known as the Battle of the Eclipse, which was written about by the Greek historian Herodotus. In 585 BC, on the Halys River in Asia Minor, where the Lydians led by King Alyattes and the Medes, under the leadership of Cyaxares, were fighting, an eclipse occurred, which had been predicted earlier. Historians believe that it was the Greek astronomer Thales of Miletus who predicted it. This eclipse, which became the first in history to be predicted by a human, gave rise to a lot of debate. Predicting a solar eclipse is a difficult task. However, calculations have shown that the eclipse actually occurred in 585 BC, but not on Thales' proposed date of May 18, 584 BC. Some believe that Thales could have used data from previous observations, but his accuracy is questionable, especially given the lack of astronomical instruments and records from that time. Historians also argue about the details of the battle. For example, Pliny in his work mentions only the king of Lydia, while the name of the Median ruler remains in question. In any case, even despite these controversial points, the Battle of the Eclipse remains an important historical event. As a result of the eclipse, a truce was concluded and the Halys River became the border between the two warring states. Stationary objects underwater. There are many immobile anomalous objects hidden in the world's oceans, which still remain a mystery for scientists. Even if we set aside myths such as the legends of Atlantis, the list of interesting discoveries still remains impressive. One of the most famous is the Yonaguni Monument, located near the Ryukyu Islands, not far from the Japanese island of Yonaguni. These are stone structures located at a shallow depth, which have regular geometric shapes. Although most scientists consider them to be natural geological formations, many researchers and pseudo-archaeologists try to prove that these stones are the result of human activity. Another mystery is the megalith found at the bottom of the Pantelleria Vecchia Bank in the Tunisian Strait. It is a huge stone, 12 meters long, and weighing 15 tons with 3 round holes in it. Based on its structure, it is believed that it was shaped by humans in the Mesolithic period about 12 to 15,000 years ago. However, analysis of the rock has shown that its age may be much greater, over 40,000 years, which casts doubt on its origin. The Cuban underwater city is another mysterious discovery made in 2001 off the western coast of Cuba. Using sonar, geometric structures were discovered that resemble pyramids and rings made of granite blocks. These findings have raised many questions among researchers, as they could be either natural formations or the result of human activity. These and other objects remain the subject of active research and discussion, as their origin could reveal much that is unknown about ancient civilizations and the nature of the ocean depths. Fragments of an alien ship in the ocean. The well-known scientist from Harvard University, astrophysicist Avi Loeb, who gained popularity for his research on UFOs and possible contacts with extraterrestrials, reported the possible discovery of fragments of an alien ship on the ocean floor. Lepp became well known thanks to his theory about the unusual nature of the asteroid Oumuamua, which in 2017 accelerated and deviated from its expected trajectory for no apparent reason, leading the scientists to suggest its artificial origin. Recently, Lepp turned his attention to a meteorite that fell into the Pacific Ocean in 2014. The object, known as AM1, was notable for its unusual speed. The scientist went to the site where it fell and, together with his team, retrieved a fragment from a depth of 1,700 meters. As a result, they discovered about 50 small spheres made of iron, magnesium, and titanium, each about 0.3 millimeters in size. Lepp and his colleagues suggest that these spherules could be evidence of an alien spacecraft making an emergency landing on Earth. However, many scientists are skeptical of his hypothesis, claiming that similar fragments with such a composition could be the result of natural processes that occur when a meteorite falls through the atmosphere and onto the ocean floor. Stars, a call from aliens. For many decades, humanity has been sending signals into space hoping to make contact with extraterrestrial civilizations. But what will happen if one day Earth receives a reply? If scientists manage to detect signs of extraterrestrial life, most likely, the first to know about it will be the specialists of the SETI program, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. This project started operating back in 1959 when scientists started studying signals from space. Today, powerful computers are used to analyze a huge number of radio signals, tracking any unusual patterns. According to Seth Shostak, the chief astronomer of the network, even if a signal from aliens is detected, it will not lead to panic. All results will be confirmed by other telescopes, and the whole world will definitely find out about it. After all, news of such a discovery will instantly spread through the media and social networks. Although in the past similar attempts to contact aliens have led to false alarms, scientists believe that it is important to be prepared for real contact. But the question of how to respond to the aliens remains open. This will require international cooperation, and according to scientists, the main language of communication will be mathematics. Professor Paul Davies from Arizona State University leads a group that is working on creating a response. Some believe that aliens might just send a signal to say, "Hello, Earthlings, we are here." But how to express the essence of human life or our values using mathematics remains a difficult task. Ancient chemical weapons. Archaeologist Simon James from the University of Leicester presented the results of his research, which may change our understanding of the use of chemical weapons in ancient times. He claims that he managed to find evidence of the use of poisonous substances in 256 AD during the siege of the Roman city of Dura Europos on the banks of the Euphrates River. James's research focused on the excavation carried out in this ancient city, which was besieged by the Persian army. In one of the tunnels dug by the Romans to prevent the enemy's advance, the remains of 20 soldiers were discovered. These men died while in their tunnels, and James theorized that the cause of their death could have been the use of chemical weapons. Traces of bitumen and sulfur crystals were found in the tunnel, substances that release poisonous fumes when burned. The scientists said the Persians may have set up a brazier in their tunnel and placed these materials on it. When the Romans broke through the wall, deadly fumes began to seep through it, killing all the city's defenders within a few minutes. Despite using chemical weapons, the Persian army was unable to destroy the city's walls through tunneling. However, Dura Europos was still captured, and the methods by which the Persians managed to do this remain unclear. Stone tools in Dagestan. Archaeological discoveries have been made in Dagestan that significantly expand our understanding of the ancient history of humanity. The main focus of the research was the ancient sites of Mukai I and Mukai II, located along the ancient riverbeds. Stone tools were found here, which are millions of years old. The discoveries at the Mukai I site attracted special attention. Among them were flat picks, bifacial choppers, and other tools similar to those found at the Enigmas I site. These finds date back to the period between 1.95 and 1.78 million years ago, making them some of the oldest in Russia. The tools found at Mukai I indicate a high level of technology among ancient people. They use stone flakes to create chopping and cutting instruments. However, unlike similar finds in East Africa, no hand axes were discovered here, which may indicate unique technologies characteristic of this part of the world. The giant tools weighing 56 kilograms are also of interest. According to scientists, they were used for breaking bones and skulls to extract bone marrow. Such tools are found at sites where ancient people butchered their prey. Kryptonite on Earth. Jadarite, a mineral discovered in 2006 in Serbia, attracted attention due to its remarkable resemblance to kryptonite, the fictional substance that weakened Superman. The chemical composition of jadarite almost completely matches the kryptonite described in the movie Superman Returns, including sodium, lithium, borosilicate, and hydroxide. However, unlike its fictional counterpart, jadarite does not contain fluorine, which gave kryptonite its famous green glow. That's why jadarite is white in color. The discovery of this material sparked great interest among both scientists and science fiction fans, becoming an example of how fiction sometimes intersects with reality. Jadarite was found exclusively in the Jadar River Valley in Serbia and is of interest due to its high lithium content, which is used in battery production. The sculptural rocks of Rutinev. In 1879, in the small town of Châteauneuf-de-Galore in the southeast of France, a postman began the construction of a unique palace, which continued for 33 years. This fantastic palace, known as the Cheval Palace, became a true work of art, created without major expense or formal training. About 15 years later, on the other side of France, in Brittany, priest Adolphe Julien Furet, later nicknamed the Breton Cheval, began creating stunning sculptures. In 1863, he was ordained as a priest, but after losing his hearing in 1894, he retired. He settled in the small village of Rutineuf, where he began working in the genre of art brut, art created outside of official culture. From 1894 to 1907, Furet created hundreds of wooden sculptures, including totem poles, figures of saints and political figures, animals, and mythological creatures. However, his most outstanding work was more than 300 sculptures carved into the granite rocks of the Emerald Coast. These brightly painted figures and bas-reliefs depict fantastic characters, historical events, and mythology, from saints and explorers to majestic figures such as Cleopatra and Napoleon. His works attracted thousands of tourists, and the city of Saint-Malo even built a tram line to handle the influx of visitors. Unfortunately, in 1907, Furet suffered paralysis, which limited his creativity. He died in 1910, but his works continued to attract attention. Today, these sculptures are under threat of destruction due to the effects of time and nature. UFOs in the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages are often perceived as an era of wars, diseases, and dark superstitions, where there was no electricity or other modern conveniences. However, during this period, there were also major achievements, such as universities and the printing press for books. These innovations not only influenced the development of science and education, but also became sources of historical records, including unusual events in the sky that can be interpreted as encounters with UFOs. One such example is a news leaflet published in April 1561 describing a mass sighting in Nuremberg. On April 14, 1561 at dawn, the residents of the city witnessed a collision of various objects in the sky, spheres, cylinders, and other strange shapes. These objects fought with each other, and then one of them, a large black triangle, appeared in the air. The event lasted for several hours, but it did not cause any harm to the townspeople. Some believe that these were mass hallucinations, while others think it could have been a clash between UFOs. Such events are not limited to Nuremberg. In 1566, similar phenomena were observed in Basel, Switzerland. Strange figures in the sky resembling battles between celestial objects. In 1665 in Berlin, fishermen witnessed a battle of airships, as well as a strange object resembling a modern description of a UFO. These stories indicate that UFOs may have been part of human mythology and documented long before the 20th century. The mysterious disappearance at the lighthouse. A lighthouse is a place that always evokes a sense of loneliness and anxiety. The disappearance of 3 lighthouse keepers from the Flannan Isles has become a true mystery. drawing those intrigued by unexplained events. It all began in 1900 when a helicopter crew went to Island Moor, part of the Flannan Isles, to check on the operation of the lighthouse and its keepers, Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, and Donald MacArthur. When they arrived, they found that no one was there, as if the men had simply vanished. Inside the lighthouse, they found an overturned chair, uneaten food on the table, and the clocks had stopped. The ship's log reported that there had been a severe storm in the area, but there were no reports of it in the surrounding regions. Based on this, it was assumed that the keepers died, swept away by the sea while doing their work, but the lack of blood traces and other evidence gave rise to many mystical theories. Some believe that the island of Eilean Mor has a sinister aura that affects people and makes them lose their minds. The mysterious disappearance, the lack of logical explanations, and the strange details made this story the basis for legends that speak of supernatural forces and even aliens. The lack of concrete facts only fuels mystical theories, leaving more questions than answers. A frightening discovery in Kuwait. In Kuwait, a unique 7,000-year-old clay figurine was found, resembling images of aliens, which became a real breakthrough in archaeology. This discovery took place at the Bara 1 archaeological site, which dates back to the 6th millennium BC. The figurine depicts a head with slanted eyes, a flat nose, and an elongated skull, which gives it a resemblance to modern representations of aliens. This find is the first of its kind in the Arabian Gulf region, although similar artifacts have previously been found in Mesopotamia. The figurine reflects the artistic traditions of the Ubaid culture, which was known for its unique pottery and figurines. Interestingly, the figurine was made from Mesopotamian clay rather than local ceramics, which indicates cultural exchange. Ubaid art included the creation of figurines with symbolic meaning, and this discovery may help us understand the spiritual practices of ancient societies. The figurines could have been associated with religious rituals or served as symbols of social status. Science hasn't confirmed the existence of visitors from space, so each person must decide for themselves what those mysterious flying objects are. Share this video with your friends and leave a nice comment below the video. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, everyone.